Hi everybody, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today and welcome to my channel. I thought I'd start off today's project by showing you a little bit of video of a recent trip we took out to our local woodlands. This was about a week ago. I hadn't been very well during the week before, and we decided to go out looking for mushrooms, not to pick, not to eat. We don't touch them. I don't have enough understanding of which are which. So we were going out to, I was trying to find, and what I want to find is the fly agaric, the lovely red with the white spots. But we've done 2 trips out so far. We still haven't found any, but we will keep on hunting. But we did find lots of beautiful other types of mushrooms and toadstools. And so I've just put in this little bit of video of some of the ones that we found because they're just so lovely. And they are the inspiration for my project that I'm making in this video today. So this particular trip out was to Brystone Forest, which is on the Isle of Wight where we live. We've also since been out to Firestone Copse on a much sunnier day. This day was very rainy and dull, but it was really nice to get out, and it was just what my head needed after feeling unwell for the previous week. So once we'd done all that, I decided to create a project sort of including mushrooms, but also including some of the idea of the autumn leaves, because there was a lot of those as well. So I'm starting off in my Dina Wakeley ledger journal, and I die cut out of some masking sheet a big circle because I wanted to sort of have like highlights or spotted highlights. I was going to use a stencil and colour the inside of the circle, and then I thought actually what I would like is to keep the inside of the circle clear and actually colour around the edge. So I'm using Distress inks, and I thought I'd go with a couple of colours I don't use that much. They're sort of on the lighter side, so I had to do quite a bit of work with them. So I'm using iced spruce, tea dye, and speckled egg. Oh, that took a bit of brain power. As always, I will list what I've used in the description box below. So I'm using the masking sheet. It's like a very thin masking paper. It's got a little bit of slippiness to it, so it's really good for taking the colour sort of from the mask off onto the page. So I was trying to sort of create that sort of circle halo almost effect, but I also wanted to bring the colour down a little bit across the page, so I did a little bit of that as well. Now here's where I add in some of the idea of those autumn leaves. These are leaves I did make for my members and on a members video recently, and I created them with different mediums and then some die cuts. So here I'm sorting them into sort of the different types of leaves almost, because some were made with more brighter colours, some were made with duller colours, and what I wanted was just to create like a partial wreath around each of these circles. So I wanted to lay them out and get a really good idea of how I wanted to stick them down, because I also wanted to add a little bit more interest on them before they actually got stuck down. So I'm just sort of fiddling around, auditioning them, seeing which ones go where the best. And that was why I sorted them into the darker and the more brighter, because I wanted to make sure I had a nice balance of colours around the circles. I wasn't going around the whole circles, and I wanted to include just a couple of those more filigree leaves that I die cut, but mostly I wanted the more solid sorts of leaves. So I spend a little bit of time just putting them down, fiddling around with them, moving them. I decide on this one that actually I want it the other way, because I want them to be opposite to each other. So one is going one way, one is going the other. And then once I'd had them exactly where I was happy with them, I just took a photo with my iPad, and then I had it there so I could refer back to that. But I did want to add a little bit more interest. So I've got a few different stamps and I've got some different archival inks. I didn't use all the colours. I think I didn't use the vintage photo in the end. But like I said, that will be listed down below. So I'm just very randomly stamping these. So I just wanted a little bit more texture and interest. I went with patterns that were quite small so that I knew that they would be able to show on the leaves, and I went with a mix of colour. I didn't worry if the stamping was overlapping, or if it, I had 2 lots on one and only one on another. It was just a very sort of random stamping session. So this is the Fungos collage book from Maremi Small Art, and I wanted to go with some mushrooms that were a bit like the ones I'd seen. So the brown spotty ones, we did see some of those, and I think there was a bit in the footage at the start, and even though we didn't find any of the red spotty fly agaric, we did see quite a few different little red toadstools. They just weren't the ones with the spots. So I sort of was trying to go with pictures of ones that would match with what we had seen. So I just cut a selection out so that I could then decide how they were going to sort of lay on my project. So I now wanted to stick these down into my circle. So I'd split them into the 2 groups that I thought would go, because I wanted to make sure that I had mixed up the brown and the red. Also to make sure that I had a variety of sizes so that they didn't all sort of look the same in each of the circles. And I'm using my Liquitex matte medium to stick these down. Now, I did debate whether to go with a normal glue because I have got that distress ink around the circles, and I know that distress ink is very reactive with liquid mediums. However, because I was sticking them onto the part where there was no ink, I thought that they would be okay, and they were. I didn't move that ink at all, really. So I'm just adding some of the matte medium to the back, then to the page, and then over the top just to seal it in. Now, at this point, I could have left this to dry. I decided that I would just move straight on to the next section because I knew this was going to be gluing as well. Now, this time I am using more substantial glue. I'm using my Cosmic Shimmer, which is a sort of PVA or acrylic based glue, and that goes on white. It actually dries clear, and it also dries matte. So if you do get a little bit of squidginess come out, it's not going to show too much. Now I'm using this glue because these leaves I had die cut from, I do believe it's watercolour cardstock think it was the Winsor & Newton 25% watercolour. So it's a lot thick. I think it's either 250 GSM or 300. I think it's 250. I'm not sure, but it was a higher, much higher GSM. So if I'd have tried to stick this down with the matte medium, it just wouldn't have done the job properly. So I have got the picture up on my tablet at this point of where I'd put the leaves in the first place, which is how I know exactly where to stick them back down. It's always a good tip if you're ever going to put things down and then have to take them off before you can stick them. Take a photo so that you know where you put them. Most of the time, actually, I don't take a photo because I don't worry too much. I sort of sometimes find that I rearranged them slightly better than I had them in the first place. So, it's personal choice. I'm just sort of laying them down, seeing which ones are going to be at the back to make sure I'm sticking them first. And you'll see that I've just got a little bit of kitchen roll just so that I am pushing them down with that rather than my hands. I do have a terrible habit of squishing things down my hands and then getting marks on things. Whereas if you have a piece of paper or a piece of kitchen towel, it just, takes that element away from the sticking process. Now I wanted to add a little bit of shading in because at the moment it's, to me, looking, I'm not sure what it is. Does it look too flat or something? I feel it needs a little bit of something. So I'm going in with the bark colour in the Inktense pencil from Derwent, and I am just adding shadowing below where the leaves are, and then I add just a little bit around the bottom part of the mushrooms inside the circle, because I did think about going around the whole of the mushrooms, but I thought that would sort of defeat the point of having masked out that area, because I did want that sort of brightness against the back of the mushroom. So I do around the bottom, but then I leave the top sort of to be still bright. So with the Derwents, I tend to, I put the darkest part near to where my images are, and then I'm watering out with a lot of water. You have a bit of time with the Inktense to water them out because they are water soluble or water reactive and pencils. The idea is that once they have been watered out, they will dry permanently. That will depend. If you leave any of the pigment still sort of intact, then obviously that won't become permanent. It has to be watered out. But it does, as soon as I find it more difficult when if you leave it to dry for too long, it is difficult to then get rid of any lines or anything like that. So I work fairly quickly when I am using the Inktense pencils. Now to tie where the imagery is in with the rest of the page, I decided to add a little bit of the same stamp that I put on the leaves into the backgrounds, but I'm going from the images onto the background so that it's tying the two together. And this is the grid stamp that's from Darkroom Door, and I'm using the Plum colour just because I thought that would really sort of echo those colours in the toadstools as well as some of the colours in the leaves. But not only am I going directly around where the images are, I'm sort of bringing it down a little bit, so I'm really extending that pattern into the rest of the page as well. Then I wanted to add in a little bit of white splatter. I think anything autumn or mushrooms or leaves seems to really benefit from a little bit of splatter. So this is the Winsor & Newton white drawing ink or calligraphy ink. I can never remember which one it is. It does need a bit of a mix because it does tend to separate when it stands for a while, but I'm just using a normal paintbrush, and then I make sure that I do wash that paintbrush straight away. And finally, I wanted a sentiment. So this is from the Autumn Stories book by Maremi Small Art. And I cut out a sentiment and then chopped it up. So that this sentiment was all in one piece, and I cut it into 2 strips, and then I cut it in one of those into 3, because I just like 3 sort of pieces to a sentiment, and I just decided that it could go there. I did debate whether to put another one on the other side, but I thought that would be too much because it's quite a long sentiment. And then just to emphasize the sentiment a little bit, just going around with a brown Unipin pen, Sepia I should say, and did it quite roughly. So here is my finished project. If you have enjoyed it, do please give it a thumbs up, and if you have enjoyed this content and it's something you would like to see more of, do please hit that subscribe button so that you can see all the videos that I put up. And at the end of this video, you'll also see a list of all my lovely members who are my super supporters, and I will put a link in the description box as well if that's something you'd be interested in finding out more about. But until the next time, thank you ever so much for watching, and bye bye.